episode number 100, IRONMAN Lake Placid with Vanessa Snyder. Welcome to the pursuit of the perfect race. I'm Coach Terry Wilson, and with each episode, I bring stories of athletes to you that share their experiences at races in order for you to learn how to have your perfect race. We'll hear stories from athletes of all ages, abilities, and races of all distances. So regardless of where you fit in, there's something in it for you. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let the pursuit begin. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the pursuit of the perfect race. Today I have the pleasure of talking with Vanessa Snyder about her recent race experience at IRONMAN Lake Placid in beautiful upstate New York, where she had a time of 15 hours, 2 minutes, and 43 seconds. Vanessa has been doing triathlons for the past 2 years now. This was her first Ironman, and this was a beautiful course to do it on with the 20th anniversary at Lake Placid. This race took place on July 22nd, 2018, with the temperature being 46 and rising to 79, and the water temperature was 74 degrees. Also notable to mention about this year's race was it was pouring rain with some hail on the bike ride. Welcome to the show, Vanessa. I look forward to hearing about your recent race experience at Lake Placid.
I'm happy to be here and, answer all of Terry's questions. And, hopefully you guys can get to that dream of completing an Ironman someday as well.
Awesome. Well, glad to have you here. What made you want to do this race in the first place?
Honestly, I'm not going to lie. I had no desire to do this 2 years ago. If you would have asked me 4 years ago to do a triathlon, I would have told you, you're crazy. I just didn't really want to do that because I was not a very good biker and cyclist, I guess you would call it. And it took me a long time to really just wrap my brain around doing one. My one friend, he kind of pestered me to no end to get me to do one. And I did a sprint. And then honestly, after the sprint, I was hooked. I was like, this is my thing. And I kind of realized that I could get kind of good at it and a little bit competitive at it. So, and it just gave me a new challenge and a new feeling. I've ran many marathons before in my life, half marathons, I've done tons of those, but I wasn't as fulfilled as I was after the triathlon. So, that's kind of the cool thing about it. I didn't really even want to do this, and here I am competing in an Ironman, and I would have never guessed 4 years ago that I would have done this. So it's really cool.
Nice. So do you have a background in any of the three sports?
Yes, I'm an aquatic director. I've been around water my entire life. So swimming was definitely my number one, and running was definitely my number one. Biking was where it was a very challenging point for me. I'm not a very good biker. So I did have to spend a lot of time in the last 2 years, biking and getting better at the biking portion of the triathlon. I started my first sprint race with a mountain bike, actually, which was kind of crazy, but I can't believe I did it with a mountain bike, but I did, and I finished it, and it was awesome. But then I was like, ooh, if I actually bought a road bike, I could get really good at this. And then I bought a semi-good road bike, and then I actually purchased a new road bike this past year for Christmas. My husband bought me a Cannondale, and that made the entire difference in the entire world. So I will never go back to the GMS anyway, but it definitely goes to show you that once you spend a little bit of money on a good bike, it's gonna take you far. So biking was definitely my biggest challenge throughout the whole triathlon procedure.
Okay. Now, going into Lake Placid this year, what was your longest swim, bike, and runs?
My longest swim was 4,300 yards in the pool. I did one open water swim. I'm a really strong swimmer. And I've done many open water swims prior to this races. So I don't have any anxiety in that aspect of things. I knew that I didn't really need to spend a whole lot of time in an open water. I could still get in and do it. I think the biggest thing for me was the open water was kind of like people running into people and swimming over you and, that type of a thing. But other than that, my bike was 90 miles. That was the longest ride. I did that once, and then I tapered down. I'd spent a lot of time at the 56-mile mark and the 80-mile mark. I did a lot of hill repeats. I didn't really do a lot of longer rides over 100 miles just because mentally I knew if I got to 90 miles, I knew I could finish it. My body could go that far. My body could go the extra 22 miles. It wasn't going to be a big deal for me. Running, I did run 20 miles and I stayed pretty consistent with that. I did not do a lot of brick workouts just because that's not what my training plan called for. I'm actually a group exercise instructor as well, working at the Y is my aquatic position. So I teach a lot of fitness classes back to back, day to day. So there was a lot of wear and tear, throughout the week that I needed to kind of recover and just focus on the longer rides and the longer runs because I was getting that back to back work, throughout the week. So but yeah, my longest swim was 4,300 yards. My longest bike was 90 and my longest run was 20.
Wow. Now, going into this race, what was the most hours that you trained in 1 week?
The most I trained was probably 18 hours total, the entire week, like Monday through Sunday. Sadly, I work as a group exercise instructor on top of my position here at the Y as an aquatics director, so I don't get rest days. My rest days were like teaching sober sneakers, so I didn't really have a whole lot of time to rest, which it made me really exhausted in the end, mentally and physically. You get to a point where you're doing so many miles and so much work and you're just like, oh my God, do I really have to get up and do this again? And yeah, you do. I mean, I never got to a bad mental point in in the training for this. I was always highly motivated, which was awesome because, I don't know how some people can make it through all of that and still be motivated, but I did it. But for the most part, though, it was just very monotonous of back to back. I was very tired at the end of the weeks. And so my long runs and my long bikes were done on tired legs. And honestly, I think it worked out better for me that way just because I was just so used to that.
Okay. What kind of plan were you using?
I actually purchased the Be Iron Fit book, and I was going off of the workouts in there for the intermediate plan. I knew I'm a little bit competitive, so I didn't really want to just be the just finished plan. I mean, obviously, if I just finished in 17 hours, I'd be extremely happy because I just finished. It was the first one I've ever done, but I wanted to push it a little bit and see if I could do a little bit better than that. And obviously, I did, so I was happy with that. I swam 2 times a week, sometimes 3. I would take some weeks where I would do a 2-week swim and then a 3-week, 2-day swim a week and then 3-day-a-week swim. I biked long bikes on Saturdays or Sundays. And I taught spinning 3 times a week for an hour. That was pretty much my core training. I only spent 2 days out on the bike. I live 27 miles from work, so I would bike to and from work. And it's really hilly. So that was awesome. I do that twice a week on top of teaching spinning and running and doing everything else that I did. Life got a bit crazy and a bit sweaty. I felt like I was never clean, but I mean, it is what it is. I did what I needed to do. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the bike portion of that.
Okay. Now, what specific workouts did you do that gave you the confidence to go into this race prepared?
Well, I did a 70.3 back in May of 2017, and I spun. I taught spinning. I went to spin classes. I, swim consistently 3 days a week, no matter what. Running. I just kind of stayed with it. I never really went off that. I always stayed consistent with swimming Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays, biking Tuesday, Thursdays with strength training on top of that, and Saturdays and Sundays. And then I would run, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday or Sunday. And I just basically just stayed consistent with that. And I just kept that up, and I just kind of increased the amount of time that I did that in. And, I knew I could do it. It was just being a little bit more specified in the training aspect of things.
Okay. Did you miss any training going into this race?
No, I did. Well, I got a little sick in April. Well, we kind of had a little bump in the road in April. My husband's uncle passed away. We inherited his dog. So that was a little bit, it's like having a new child, having a puppy, it was like, oh my gosh. So it was kind of like April was a rough month for us. I got sick. I traveled to see my sister in Utah, and it was kind of like, your training just kind of went down and up, but honestly, I was doing so much up to that point. I really did need that time to mentally and physically kind of pull back and be like, okay, you have peak weeks here coming up in, May and June. You need to chill out for a little bit, let your body recover so that you can hit all of those workouts and not be extremely exhausted.
Right.
So, that was probably the time. And the weather was really crappy. I live in central Pennsylvania. So the weather was snowing one day, and then it was beautiful the next, and then it's raining and hailing, so it was just it was really difficult to even like get out on your bike. And I don't have a trainer. I just teach spin. So I would just spin, on my spin bike. But, it was really hard to get out and get motivated to get out in that weather, those types of conditions. But other than that, I mean, that was probably the biggest part, for me from the end of March until the end of April was kind of like a rocky month for me. But I had the support of my husband, not my family that much. And my husband, who I consider my family, but like my parents and like his family, they're not really too supportive. They think I'm crazy that I pick these adventures and do them. But, hey, it is what it is. And as long as he supports me, I'm going to do it,
That makes sense. Now, with all of this training, you didn't get injured or anything like that, but were there any days where you just mentally didn't want to train?
Oh yeah. Mentally, the weekends were rough because, I wake up at 4:00 in the morning to start my day and I don't go to bed till 10 o'clock at night. So like, when you're doing that Monday through Friday, it was like, I knew in the back of my mind, okay, Saturday I had to do this, Sunday I had to do this, but it was just like, there were some points where it was like, I don't want to do that, because all I wanted to do was sleep because I was so tired from training, during the week. So at that point in my training, that was about like March. I did take one day a week where I just kind of like, I just went to work and I had my fitness classes and I didn't do any other training on top of that. Like for the Ironman, just because movement is good,
Right.
And honestly, it helped me mentally a little bit that way. But, mentally, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I stayed 100% pretty much the whole time. I did probably dip down into that like 90%, probably whenever the weather, like it was like March and April, whenever the weather was still like, I just wanted to be outside. I wanted it to be nice. You get kind of a little bit down, but honestly, I kept a good mental state. I was extremely happy with it. And honestly, throughout the race too, I was extremely happy with the mental aspect of things. Like, I don't know. I mean, there were some dark points in the race, but overall, it was like, when I look back at it, it was like 80% of it was pretty good mentally. So I think that's pretty good.
Okay. Now, as far as your life and work and training and spending time with the husband and taking care of the new dog, how big of an issue was balancing all these different plates?
Honestly, for me, we don't have any kids. I have 2 dogs, 2 cats. So, that was not difficult for me at all. My husband was extremely supportive. I work at a Y. So, that's the beauty of it. It was nice because I literally on my lunch break, I woke up, I did a workout. On my lunch break, I did a workout. And then whenever I came home, I did a workout. So, I mean, I was working out, 3 hours a day, not always 3 hours a day for training. It just depended on what it was that I needed. But everyone was extremely supportive. In that aspect of things, like my husband was just like, hey, he knew he was going to get me back eventually after the race. So he just supported me the whole time, which was awesome. Work was pretty good. I think I worked out a little bit too much there in my peak weeks, but my boss was just like totally on board with it. He's like, this is so cool, hey, whatever, cause I mean, the cool thing about it is like my job, there's like where I'm doing a lot at one time. And then there's sometimes where I have like dull moments, So it's like, he was like, hey, I know you're going to get all your work done. I'm not worried about it. Just as long as you're giving me 100%, that's all I care about. And that's what I aim for. I needed to give 100% to my husband, to my job, and to my workouts. And I think I did that pretty well, even with like getting the new dog and having the little bump in the road, it was a little bit stressful at times, but it all seemed to work out. And I mean, I guess like you got to have a huge support team behind you, because if you don't, it's going to be really, really difficult. I mean, that's one thing. I mean, I'm extremely blessed to have had that, because I feel like it would have been a lot harder if I didn't.
Right. Going into Lake Placid, what sacrifice was the most difficult for you to make?
Probably like the weekends. Like I spent a lot of time with my niece and nephews, and we missed, I don't know how many children's birthday parties I missed, and children's play dates I missed, like taking them on bike rides and things that things that I did with them. I'd just be like, hey guys, you got to wait till the race is over and then we can go for like ice cream. We can bike and go for an ice cream type of a thing. That's probably the hardest thing that I miss the most, honestly, because we do that a fair amount just for fun, and when you're on a bike for 4 or 5, 6 hours and you're running, I mean, that's you're number one, you're exhausted. So you don't really want to be exercising any more than that, and then it's like, you've got to spend all that time. The thing that probably faltered the most was cleaning my house. I hate cleaning my house, but so that was probably the biggest thing, that I was like, oh, and, I thought about hiring a maid, but I did not, but it was a thought. So
now, do you remember when you registered for the race?
yes, I registered exactly 1 year ago today.
Wow.
So yeah.
Now,
yeah, it's kind of.
Was that a big event? Was that like something that you and your husband did together?
No. Well, I mean, like, he knew I was going to sign up because I had told him, I was like, I'm doing this, and he supported me 100%. My husband does not do triathlons. I think I have inspired him to get into the triathlon business now after the Ironman. But he just was a runner, and he liked to lift weights. So he's not really into the biking and the swimming. I think now, though, he's starting to get into that a little bit more because he's like, I think I can beat her. But other than that, I mean, he really wasn't in it. So I think he wanted to watch me go through it, type of a thing, to see if he even wanted to do it.
That makes sense. Now, going into Lake Placid this year, what was your taper like?
Well, I did a sprint triathlon on July 1st, and then I did a 10K and a bike race local on the 4th of July, and then I literally started my taper on July 5th, which consisted of 1 workout a day, 1 hour workout a day. It didn't matter. Like, I would go for like a 30-minute run, and then I'd do like a 30-minute swim, but it was only 1 hour, and I did that from July 5th until July 21st. I took the most rest days I've ever taken in my entire life. Not gonna lie, it drove me crazy, but it worked. I mean, I knew physically my body was so tired at that point on July 5th, and I've never tapered for anything in my entire life, really. Marathons, half marathons, everything. Other triathlons I've done. Never really tapered just because I couldn't, because I was always teaching fitness classes and such. But this, I knew I needed to be fresh, and I needed to be 100% on race day. So I took 4 days rest. It was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I slept in. I didn't even set an alarm most days. I just woke up, took a nap if I needed to, and honestly, it was exactly what my body needed. Other people, obviously can't do that. They need to be doing something. But I knew, like, myself, it was like I had to tell myself not to do anything because I didn't want to overextend what I was doing and then hurt myself on race day. And for me, it worked out. Like, I was going through like very sore points because like my body was like, oh, your lower back hurts, just from in your mind, you're like, oh my gosh, you're so sore, you can't do this, you can't go 140.6 miles. But then, like, the morning of the race, I woke up, I felt good, there was no pain anywhere, I didn't have any issues with anything, and I was like, okay, I know exactly what I did was what I needed to do. And it was, I mean, it was awesome. It was the best taper I could have ever done for myself, and I'm really happy that I did take the time to do that. So
good. Now, have you ever been to a big event like Ironman before?
Probably not as big as Ironman. My husband and I have done the Disney Marathon, the Disney half marathons, and those are pretty big events. We actually have done a couple of the rock and roll half marathons, events, and they're pretty big events. So, I mean, I would classify those as pretty big as Ironman, but nothing quite like Ironman. You know what I mean? Like, it's just an experience in itself, like, it's just cool.
Right.
But nothing really like that, I mean, Disney Marathon was awesome. The expo is huge, it's crazy because it's in Disney, but, and like the rock and roll, we did it in Vegas and it was awesome. And, but nothing really like, those are probably the biggest races we've done other than, the Ironman. But I just thought the Ironman was so cool because it was just there was just so much more behind it, than just a marathon, you know?
Now, whenever you got to the village, what was your first impression of the village there at Lake Placid?
Oh my gosh. I chose Lake Placid, obviously because of the Olympic vibe. I don't know, like red, white, and blue, I'm an American, so I'm really big on that. And, I chose it because I thought that it would have a really good energy, for the race. And honestly, as soon as I entered the village, it was just like, wow, like this is awesome. This is the venue. I'm so glad I chose this venue. Even throughout the entire course, even when I was like running or biking or swimming, like it was just so awesome. The atmosphere was just so awesome. It was everything I ever wanted for my first Ironman, honestly.
Wow. Now, when did you actually start traveling from Pennsylvania all the way up to Lake Placid?
We were supposed to leave Thursday at noon, but my husband failed to tell me on Wednesday that he had a meeting. So I was like, like panicking. But I'm like, oh, there's always bumps in the road. We can survive, you know. We left Pennsylvania at 4:00. We got to Lake George at like midnight. We stayed overnight in Lake George, got up and drove to Placid like an hour and a half, you know, in the morning on Friday morning. We got to Lake Placid about like 10 a.m.
Okay. And did you first go to Mirror Lake, or did you go to the expo, check out the hotel? What did you do when you first got to the city?
Well, we obviously had to find a parking spot because there's not a lot of parking in that small little town. But, like, you know, you had to find a parking spot, and then we went right to the expo. Because we had, I don't know, we just wanted to make sure I was checked in by the time and everything. We went, did all of that. We went through the Ironman Village. We checked out Mirror Lake. We walked all over the place trying to find out a place to go to lunch, you know. And then we went back. We actually camped in a tent. So we went back to the KOA and we set up camp, and then we hung out there for a little bit. Actually got all of my transition bags ready to go for, you know, Sunday, because Saturday we had planned to do a little trip to Vermont, just because, you know, we wanted to sightsee as well. And I wanted to get all of that stuff taken care of and made sure I had everything ready to go for Sunday.
Okay. So y'all stayed in a tent for the entire Ironman process?
Yep.
Okay. And y'all had showers over there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was beautiful. The KOA was awesome.
Okay. How much did it cost to camp over there?
I think it was $120 total. Might have been a little less.
4 nights?
Yeah, we stayed Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday. Yeah, it was $120.
Okay, that's pretty cool. That's a neat little.
Yeah, it's a little. Yeah, because everything else, I mean, is extremely expensive. Not to be rude, you know, I mean, but like we were just like, oh my gosh, we can't drop $1,000 on like a condo. So, you know, and we're totally okay with camping. We hike, we backpack, you know, so we're cool with it. It wasn't a big deal for me. I was comfortable, so it was fine.
Right. Now, as far as whenever you got to your bike check-in the day before, how did that process go for you? Were you overwhelmed? Anxiety levels, nervousness, excitedness? What was going on?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I was a little bit frustrated because it was my first Ironman. So they didn't really spend a whole lot of time, like telling the newbies what exactly you needed to do. You know, I mean, I don't know. I went to the athlete briefings, you know, like I went to those meetings and stuff, but it wasn't like specific, like you need to drop your transition bags when you drop your bike. I didn't know that, you know, so it was like, I brought my bike. Oh, I had to run back up to my car and get all the transition stuff, even though it was packed. You know what I mean? Everything was packed and ready to go, but I thought I was supposed to bring that the morning of the race. Had no idea that it was going to be, you know, like that afternoon I needed to have that, you know? So it was just, that was a little bit stressful because, like, you know, you park a half a mile away. You don't really want to be on your feet that much the day before the race. You know, people are trying to go here and here and here. And you're like, oh my gosh, you know? But then, like, after, I guess, like, if I had done it before, it would have been different. But I just felt like there would have been a little bit easier if they just gave us, like, a beginner's, like, if you were a beginner, like a beginner's to-do list, kind of like, hey, beginners, don't forget you need to do X, Y, and Z, you know, just something like that would have helped. Other than that, I mean, I wasn't really overwhelmed. I was just like, oh my gosh, like I kind of felt like an Olympian and I wasn't an Olympian, you know, like it was just so cool because of the atmosphere.
Right. Now, after you drop your bike off and you actually leave the village for the last time before race day, are you trying to go and get a certain meal in before race day? What was that like?
I really wasn't. I mean, I always eat spaghetti and meatballs and a salad before I race the night before. Like I had said, we decided to take the Essex ferry from little bit, like about a half an hour above Lake Placid to Vermont just to check it out. My husband was in search of beer, so I guess I do the Ironman. He looks for beer, type of a thing. So we ended up eating on our way back from Vermont. We ended up eating at the Adirondack, pizza and pasta, and it was like, I think I ate at like 6:30 at night. And I mean, normally we eat at like 8 o'clock at night. So I wanted to make sure I was in bed by like 9:30. Everything was good to go. All the other nights I slept really well. I didn't really sleep very well that night because I kept waking up and thinking I was missing my alarm, so it was like, oh my gosh, did I miss the start? But I mean, that's normal. I feel like that's normal on your race or like your first new thing, the new race, type of thing. Like I can go to a marathon now and I'm like, I don't need to stress. But like, the Ironman, I was like, oh, I got to make sure I'm there, but other than that, I really tried to focus on hydration. I had some electrolyte problems throughout training where I wasn't actually able to hold in the electrolytes from like Gatorade. So I had to switch to an entirely different formula, like concoction, I call it, that I made. And so that I could actually keep the salt in my body and actually use the electrolytes, because there were some long rides I would come back completely drained. And, after I made some changes early on, I never had that problem.
Okay.
So
what changes did you make and what products did you end up using?
I actually ended up using Scratch Labs. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Yeah.
We hike and we backpack a lot, and not that there's anything wrong with Gatorade. It's just, I try to eat as natural as I possibly can. And I don't want high fructose corn syrup. I don't want any of those yucky things in my body, because I feel like what yuck I put in my body, it's not going to give me the product that I want. So I basically switched to Scratch Labs and I used Infinity. I also used a little electrolyte pill called ADP. So
I have not heard of ADP. What is that?
It's my husband actually bought it for me. It's just an electrolyte pill. It's filled with salt. And I would take that every 60 minutes of intense exercise. I won't ever take it like if I was just lifting weights for an hour or swimming for an hour, because my body really didn't need it for those things. The humidity that I was training in, I needed it because it was just so hot and humid. My body just couldn't hold in everything that I was taking. Now on race day, that was totally opposite. It rained, like totally different than what I'm training in. So I was actually taking in too much nutrition, which I'm sure we'll get to, but it actually made me sick, so, you get opposite, it works and sometimes it doesn't. But the two biggest things I did use were Scratch and Infinity, and those worked amazing. And obviously water. I did use a little bit of Gatorade. A couple of the long rides, we did, our one buddy, he had a cooler with, like Gatorade and stuff in. And if I didn't have anything, I would take it, but I tried to stay clear of it just because I didn't really want that. But I mean, for the most part, Infinity was my number one, and then Scratch, and then water, and a little bit of, Gatorade here and there.
Okay. To kind of just get an understanding of your bike setup, how many bottles can you have on your bike?
They don't give you a regulation. It's honestly however many you want. I had two. I had two, and then I had like the one in between my aero bars filled with water. Because I figured I could grab the water really easily on the transitions. Everyone's going to give me water, so I'll just grab that. My two bottoms on my base were full of Infinity and Scratch. I do a combination, half Infinity, half Scratch, in one bottle. It was equal to about 300 calories. And I just consumed one bottle every 2 hours, and then the next bottle. And then at my special needs, I did fill up my bottles again, just real quick. And I used those because I didn't want to carry them. I'm actually really glad. I'm really, really glad I didn't, because they would have gotten wet and they would have came out of my tri-suit, and it wouldn't even have worked out that well. So halfway through, I did fill back up with those, and I used those the rest of the race. But they don't really give you a recommendation on the bottle. So, which I was surprised, but you can put, hey, as many as you want on there, you can put them on there.
Right. That makes sense. So personally, I only have two behind my seat and nothing on my frame, and an aero bottle in my aero bars, and that's it. So that way my frame is bare and it's faster.
Right.
Now you're using a road bike with clip-on aero bars, it sounds like?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, you wake up the morning of the race. About how much sleep do you think you got?
Oh, I got about 6 hours.
Okay.
And that's normal.
Now,
It's normal for a day-to-day basis anyway for me.
Okay, now you're getting ready to go to the race, but before you get to the race, what's your race day morning ritual like before you leave your campsite?
Well, I got up, obviously, got dressed. On my way to the venue, I ate 2 peanut butter and jelly English muffins, just because my stomach is really sensitive. So I didn't, eat anything other than that. But we just drove there. I drank a lot of water. I drank some Noon tablets as well. I did drink some Gatorade, but really that was it.
Okay. Now, did you have
I put sunscreen, I put on some sunscreen and stuff. I mean, it wasn't really sunny, so I wasn't really too concerned, but I know I did put some on.
Okay. Now, did you have some coffee the morning of the race?
I did not, actually. I didn't have any caffeine the morning of the race.
Okay.
But I don't really drink that much caffeine to begin with. I mean, I do, but I don't,
Okay. Now, you get to the race venue and you're putting everything on your bike. What's your nerves like at this point?
I was extremely calm. I'm actually surprised I was that calm. I guess there was nothing more I could do to prepare. I did everything I needed to prepare. I didn't need to be nervous. I was going to finish the race. I knew deep down in my heart that I was going to give it my best, no matter what that was, on that day. And I trained extremely hard, so I didn't really need to worry about anything.
Okay. Now,
I just took in every bit I possibly could.
Okay, now, we know this is going to be a wetsuit legal swim by the time you get there, but are you keeping an eye on the weather at all?
No, I really wasn't. Honestly, I just came to the conclusion it's going to be what it's going to be. I didn't really train in the 50-mile crosswinds or the hail. I did train in rain, so I was ready for the rain, but the winds and the hail kind of threw me off a little bit. But honestly, I was like, there's nothing I can do. All the money's in the bank. I trained as hard as I could. So, I mean, the weather's going to be what it's going to be. There's no reason to stress about it.
Gotcha. Now, you head down to the swim start where everybody is. All of these athletes are there. They're getting in the corrals, getting their wetsuits on, kind of getting into race mode. What are you doing in that mindset there?
Well, I didn't wear a wetsuit, so I wasn't. No, it was 75 degrees. That's perfect. I thought that would just waste a lot of time, honestly. So I didn't wear a wetsuit. I was just ready to go. People were kind of stressing me out because they're stressing themselves out over little things they don't really need to be stressing out about. But I mean, honestly, like, I was just ready to go. I mean, my heart, I was trying to really mentally, my book, my Be Iron Fit, really stressed on keeping your heart rate at a certain level before the race. Because you want to make sure you're in that anaerobic zone the whole time. Try not to let it spike at all. So I was really focusing on my heart rate and, making sure it wasn't going above where it needed to be. And I was really calm. I can't believe how calm I was, but I just really wanted to focus on keeping my heart rate where it needed to be so that I could finish the day, strong.
Gotcha. Now, where did you seed yourself at?
I swam in the 120 to 130. A couple other people that I had met throughout the previous days, they were like, hey, it's your first Ironman. Don't try and beat it to the punch whenever, you start out. They're like, you're going to catch some slow people. You're going to run over some people. People are going to be running over you. They're going to be kicking you in the face. Seriously, the turtle wins the race. Take your time in the swim because, even though, you can do it. Just take your time and don't rush anything more than what you need to because you have a really long day ahead of you. And honestly, I took that advice and I was just like, yeah, I know I could probably swim a 115 if I wanted to, but I'm swimming with a lot of other people. I'm not just swimming in a pool with a lane line, I could do it in just 105, but there's just so many other things you've got to take into consideration. The waves, the people, people swimming over you. I had that happen a couple times. Or kick you. That happened a couple of times, but I guess that's the beauty of swimming in open water. You're going to have that. It doesn't matter where you swim or what race you're going to do. You're going to have that.
Gotcha. Now, before you actually got in the water, did you have a spare pair of goggles with you?
I did not. Nope. I mean, I did. They were back at the campsite, but they weren't with me at all.
Okay. And did you have a spare hair tie or two?
Yeah, I did on my wrist. Yeah.
Okay. Just in case one of them popped?
Yep.
Okay. Did you wear just one swim cap and put your goggles underneath that? Or did you wear two?
I wore one. I put my goggles on first because I was a swimmer. I put my goggles on first and then I put the cap on top so that I form a little lip so that the goggles, stay on. I'm always one of those people that come out with rings around my eyes, but I could care less. Just as long as my goggles are on my face, that's all that matters. Nope, I just wore the race cap they gave me and the goggles that I brought.
Okay. I've heard some women actually put on like their normal swim cap, put the goggles on then, and then put the swim cap on there. So that way you have like the hair in a bun that's situated, and then you have the goggles under that, not in the hair, and then you have the actual cap on.
Well, I braid my hair. I guess like I put my hair in a braid. So I just like one braid down my back and like I flip the end up and then I put the goggles on and over. So it doesn't, for me, I've never had any problems, but I practiced that a lot. So it worked for me. So I just did that,
Okay. Now we get to the swim. The cannon goes off. You get in the water. How does the swim go for you?
Honestly, it went way better than I expected it to go. I thought it was going to be a little bit more chaotic than that just because of the start. There being that many people in the water at the same time and everyone's at a different pace. The first lap was really good for me. And the second lap was good for me too. It was just on the second lap, a lot of the people who had started in the back of the pack are swimming and you kind of had to swim through a lot of those people, which is totally fine because they're on the same journey that I am. But that was a little bit frustrating for me because I spent more time weaving in and out of people than what I really would have wanted to. But I mean, honestly, it was fine. I made the most of it. I was like, whatever, you're not going to be here that long. It's your shortest portion of the day. Just deal with it. You're going to be out before you know it.
Okay. Now, did you find the yellow wire on the bottom?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. The first time I really used that, because I'm a big lane line person. So, I mean, I honestly, like, whenever I first started doing triathlon, I was like, I can't do this. I'm not going to be able to see, and that was a big thing for me from, seeing a black line my whole entire life to not seeing anything, it was kind of frustrating, but I really liked that because it was like, it made me sight and it made me stay in a better line because I just kept it in my vision and then I would turn and I would see the pylons. So I knew where I was at, throughout the course.
Okay.
But I love the swim. The swim was beautiful. I mean, Mirror Lake was absolutely gorgeous. I probably could, I've never been able to see that far in my entire life in the water. It was just so cool.
So you could almost see the bottom?
Oh yeah. It was insane.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. I think I was more focused on like looking at trying to find the bottom of the lake than I was like anything because I'm like, wow, this is just so awesome, because other triathlons I've done you can literally only see your hand, if that. So it was pretty cool.
Wow, that's awesome. Now you get done with the swim.
Mirror Lake is definitely a mirror. It's beautiful.
Wow. Now you get done with the swim and you make your way to T1. It's about a half a mile away. You go up a hill, down a hill, up a hill, then down another hill going into T1. It's all carpeted. You're not wearing a wetsuit, so you don't have to worry about taking your wetsuit off. You get to T1. What do you have in your bag and how are you preparing for this 112-mile bike ride?
Mentally, I was just really psyched for it. I was just like, you have been crushing these bike rides. Let's put this training to work. I mean, because like I consider myself more a runner than a swimmer than a cyclist. Like I don't really classify myself as a cyclist at all. So I was extremely motivated at that point. I was just so excited because just the vibe, the spectators, you're running down this carpet and they're just screaming and you're honestly just like, wow, like you seriously, you feel like an Olympian. You're just like, holy cow, this is so cool. And then, excuse me. And you get to that point and you're just like, wow, I got to take it all in, and, I had my bike helmet. I had my cleats. I had a towel. I had my, my fuel. I went to the bathroom. Other than that, it only took me like 10 minutes, to transition in and out of that. And I did see my family, which was kind of cool. It was, like that was kind of a little bit of a motivator too. My husband and my sister were there. But other than that, I mean, I was just so excited, but I also had in the back of my mind too, don't get your heart rate above a certain amount because you don't want to spike it, because you want to make sure you're still in that anaerobic zone. So I was like taking it all in and really enjoying myself, but I didn't want to get too excited because, I still had a long day ahead of me. I still had 112 miles and then 26 miles to go. So I didn't want to get too excited yet,
Right. Now, did you have a certain strategy of how you wanted to attack the bike ride?
Yes. Take it easy the first lap and then kick it up a notch the second lap. The bike was nothing that I expected it to be. I mean, we drove the course the day before. So, like, I knew what to expect, which, I wasn't worried about it at all. I've got a lot of hills. I train in a lot of hills where I live. So I wasn't worried about the hills or the elevation. But about 5 miles in, it started to rain. And you're cranking up a hill. And then you realize, you're going up a hill. You're going to come down a hill. And I knew that cane descent was pretty serious. And we were coming down a short hill and into the Olympic bobsled and speed skating areas. And oh my gosh, the winds. I've never rode in wind that serious in my entire life. Obviously I've only had this Cannondale since January. And I mean, we rode in wind, but I never rode in that type of wind. And my bike was just fishtailing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to wreck. And I mean, the road, they just had paved the road too. So it was like you had all those fresh oils. I was just so worried that I was going to wreck. So I just.
Hold on a minute. You broke up there. You said you're about to wreck because you're fishtailing?
Yeah. We were coming down. It was a small descent into the bobsled, the Olympic, arena there with like the speed skating and stuff. And it was just hailing, and the wind was like just crosswinds. I mean, I've never had crosswinds in my life, So, I mean, it was just crazy, but I don't have serious elevation like the Adirondacks either, So that was like, oh man. And mentally right at that point, I was like, I don't know if I can do this or not. I mean, seriously, like it was just like, it was coming down so hard, and it did that for the whole first lap. And, I was really hoping, like around that first lap, I was like, I just need to see my husband. I need to see my husband because, I can see him and he's going to be like, awesome, he's like my motivator. And when that came around, I was.
Hold on a minute. The internet is really bad right now for some reason.
Okay.
I'm going to try to get a little bit better reception here. Not sure what's going on. It's like cutting really in and out really bad. Let me try to make sure it's good. So now to paint a better picture of what this is like for you, you're about 135 pounds, 5'4", on a road bike, and you have 80 millimeter deep wheels on this going up and down these mountains. And you're battling these winds of about 50 miles an hour crosswinds, and you're getting thrown around quite a bit. Now, you know that the other lane coming towards you isn't closed, but yet you know the lane going with you is. So you know you can't really go too far over, and otherwise you might get hit by a car during the race. So you have that fear as well. Right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wasn't really as worried about being hit by a car. I wasn't really concerned about like being hit by a car. There really wasn't that much traffic, honestly. I was just worried I was going to fall off the bike. That was the big thing for me because I have a tendency to fall off the bike whenever it's wet and I take the turns too sharp. And so I was really, 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 really trying to like keep it, controlled. And my hands were just like, I felt like I had arthritis after I was done because I was gripping the brake so hard. But I mean, honestly, like it was what I had to do because I was like, I do not want to wreck.
Right. Now, were you trying to hit a certain cadence or heart rate number or anything like that?
Yeah, I wanted to stay between 150 to 175-ish on my heart rate. I did that pretty consistently. My cadence, I really, like my first lap, I wanted to be anywhere between 12 and 14. Obviously, going downhill, I wasn't as fast as what I wanted to be. But on the flats, I did seem to pick up a little bit on the flats and on the uphills. I'm a really good climber. I don't know why. I think it's because of my big quads, but other than that, like I'm a really good climber. So I picked up a lot of time climbing and a lot of time, on the flats. And then that second loop, I did really kick it in a little bit. And I was able to actually enjoy the downhill on the second lap because it wasn't raining and it was overcast and the roads were dry. So I was like, I'm going to try and go as fast as I can because I wasn't able to enjoy this the first time around.
Okay. Now, in the later stages of the bike ride, about miles 80 to 100, where you're past the 70.3 distance, but you're nowhere near the end of the bike ride. How are you doing mentally?
Surprisingly, I was really good from mile 80 to a mile 100 mentally. The last 12 miles mentally were probably the toughest just because you kind of wanted to be done, like you knew what was coming and I just couldn't wait to get there, but I knew it was going to take me X amount of time to get there. So it was like I had to like saddle my horses a little bit and focus on 1 mile at a time, not be like, 2 miles left. Oh no, I only got, it was like I was constantly looking at my watch. And I think it was just because it wasn't because I was sore or I was really tired. I really could have gone longer on the bike, honestly, which means my training paid off. But it was just like, I wanted to see somebody that I knew. I wanted to see people. I wanted to hear people cheering for me, because after you're out there for that long, you get kind of, I don't know, you kind of talk to yourself a little bit. It's a long time. You talk to people around you, you feel like you're going a little bit crazy, but, you really just want to kind of have a pick me up. And wasn't I was mentally like, wasn't in it. It was just mentally like, I need someone to just scream my name, type of a thing,
Right. Now, over the course of this 112 miles, did you see a lot of people with flats or mechanicals?
Oh, there were so many issues.
Really?
Oh yeah, I was praying that I didn't have any issues because the tires, the wheels on my bike were actually very good. Like originally, like whenever, like a couple weeks ago. Yeah, well, I had gone out on this 50-mile bike ride with my buddy, and I had hit a rock, and it completely popped my tire. So like 3 weeks, my bike was like a wreck. Like the wheel, it was like I have to change a flat every other week. It was horrible. But then we got the new wheels, put them on, rode totally fine. But I've never seen in any race I've ever done, and I've done a lot of races, I've never seen so many flat tires in my life. I've never seen so many people fall off their bikes and break their clavicle or break their arm. But I feel like it was just the conditions. You know what I mean? Like the conditions were really harsh the first lap. So I think a lot of people just kind of beat the gun a little bit on that. And, they ended up, it ended poorly for them. But there were so many flat tires and mechanical issues on people's bikes. It was crazy. I was just blessed I didn't have any.
Wow. Now, you get to T2. Before you get to T2, you're coming up the little ramp there. Are you doing anything to prepare to start running?
Kind of a little bit. I think I was mostly just like preparing my mind that like you had to go 26 more miles. You had to run a marathon. And it was like, you just kind of wanted to be done. You know what I mean? Like you were like, you just rode, you just swam 2.4, you rode 112. You're just kind of like, wait, I really have to go 26 miles? But
and
like
you were on the bike for 8 hours and some change.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So like you're on the bike for that long and it really wasn't, for me, it was okay. But like whenever you get to that like run point, you're just like, I've done it before. I've done the run before, I've obviously ran how many marathons in my life, but like it was different this time around, like I was already tired and you went like, 114.4 miles already. You only had, I'm like, Vanessa, you only have 26 miles to go. But that 26 miles, I also knew was like going to take me 4.5, 5 hours, because my legs were already tuckered. So it was a really mental battle, coming into the first lap of that, honestly. I'm not going to lie. That's why I said, at the beginning, it was a great day. It was a long day, but there were a lot of highs and there were a lot of lows. And obviously coming off the bike, I fueled a lot on the bike, or I feel like I really didn't need to fuel that much just because it was raining. It wasn't as hot as what I had trained in or it had anticipated. So like I had a lot more fuel in me So like my stomach was really upset as well. So it was like, oh my gosh, I don't feel that great. And I still have to run 26 miles. I mean, I just couldn't sit down and relax. I had to actually like continue to go if I wanted that medal.
Right. Now, when you got to T2, what all did you have in your T2 bag?
I had some gummies. I had my running sneakers, fresh socks, a towel. I think I had like my chafe cream if I needed it, suntan lotion, which I didn't need. And I didn't need the chafe cream. I also had a bottle of Infinity too.
Okay.
But other than that, that was it.
Okay. Now you get out on the run. For everybody that's heard this already, you already know what the course is like. So I'll skip that. But it's basically a smiley face. You go from left to right, and then back, and you're done, pretty much.
Yep.
Lots of hills on the left side, flats, and nobody on the right side. How was the first lap for you?
The first lap for me, it wasn't bad. I started out a little quick. But my stomach, I mean, after eating 4 Cliff Bars on the bike and all those gummies, my stomach was completely upset. So that, I mean, I really needed to like kind of slow down a little bit. But, me, I'm like, no, I got to keep going. I can't slow down. So I pushed through that pretty much until like the 6-mile portion. And then I just kind of like, I started to walk a little bit because my stomach, it was getting to the point where like, I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to finish this because I would take a drink of water or, Infinity, and I would literally like get so nauseated. Like, I mean, I was like throwing up, like it was horrible. So I shuffled the first lap. And then I saw my husband and my sister and I handed them, I mean, I look back at the pictures and I'm like, wow, I look that good because I really did not feel that good at all.
Right.
You know what I mean? But like I handed them off my water bottle and my gummies because I was like, I mean, my arms were just so tired, so it was just like, I'm not going to use this. It's making me sick. I'll just use whatever on the course. And, I mean, I did train with eating real food the whole time of my training period. So nothing really upset my stomach. Cliff Bars I knew upset my stomach and I still use them, but I just thought, maybe I won't upset my stomach that day. Never again for sure on the next one. But it was just very, it was very hard, but then like, I don't know, like I did walk from mile 14 to mile 15. And after I did that, my digestive system kind of, fixed itself. I went to the bathroom and then I was just extremely motivated and which I was really happy about because I guess like looking back, I would much rather have had the first lap just be mentally tough and the second lap be as glorious as it was because if the last lap was not glorious, I didn't want to cross the finish line and be sad or unhappy. I mean, I wanted to cross that finish line and look strong, feel strong, be proud of my accomplishment. So I was really happy how that worked out for me.
Okay. Now, there's lots of hills on the left side of the course or the west side of the course. How are you mentally tackling these on the second loop?
Honestly, I didn't think it was that hilly. I don't know. I didn't really think it was that bad compared to the bike, obviously. I honestly, I walked up the hills and I walked through the aid stations, because I wanted to conserve my energy for the finish line. I wanted to run the last, few miles of the race and be strong. So I did walk up some of the hills, power walked up the hills. I did walk through some water stations just to kind of get just to bring my heart rate back in check and to check in with myself. Like, hey, Vanessa, are you okay? Can you give a little bit more or you can't, and I mean, it worked out really well for me. Yeah, I probably would have loved to have had a better run time, but at the same time, I wanted to finish too.
Right. Now, the mental part of this from miles 15 to say 22, where there's really not anybody around. Most of the spectators by the time you are at this point are mostly gone. You're past the special needs on the run. It's getting dark. They're handing out chicken broth. They're handing out lights. How are you doing mentally at this point in the game?
I guess I knew I was going to be done. I don't know. I guess I'm more of a positive outlooker on things. Mentally, I wanted to be done, but I knew I wasn't done. I still had finished business to do. Well, for the first lap on the run, I was mentally not doing well, but on that second lap, after I got some digestive issues worked out, it was much better. I mean, it was crazy. Just how that little thing caused me to have such a horrible beginning. And it shouldn't, because I mean, I'm a runner, you know, like I really, like I should have been having an epic time, you know, type of thing. But I don't know, like people were playing music. I was really motivated. This when people were playing Bon Jovi, and I love Bon Jovi. So like it really like extremely like motivated me. And I was just like, guys, we only have like 7 miles to go. And, you know, people are looking at me like I'm a crazy person, but I'm just like, it's only 7 miles. Like you know how far we've came? You know what I mean? 7 miles is nothing. So I was really pumped up like the second half, you know, I mean, and that's not normal for me in a marathon. Normally I'm the total opposite. I'm totally like crazy until like mile 16, and then like after that I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna survive this, you know, type of thing. So it was kind of cool to like experience it in a different way around. But I don't know, I guess like too, I think about all the reasons why I did it in the first place. You know, you're running and you're just thinking of all the good things that happen, and you know how good you feel. And I mean, yeah, your quads hurt really bad, but I mean, like mentally, like, and physically, you're like, wow, I've done something so awesome and it's paying off right now, you know, like all the training, and you're coming back into the village and you're just like the energy, like you can hear Mike Riley like announcing everyone's names. You're an Ironman, you know, you can see the lights. I mean, just the vibe of the city was just awesome. And I don't know, like I anticipated on finishing, you know, just like it being a little bit dark. And it was, I mean, it was a little before 10, but I liked it. I don't really run at night. I mean, I run early in the morning, you know, with my dogs, but I don't know, it was just awesome. So I actually really enjoyed it. And the second lap for me was so much better than the first. I was much stronger and much more motivated than that first lap. But
okay, now you get to the point of the course where you can make the left to go back on the second loop, and by the time you got there, they had probably already shut that down, and then you could only go to the finish line.
No, it was still open. Yeah, there were still people going that way, and I don't know. It was I didn't realize that, but it was kind of, there were people still going that way, and I felt deeply for them, because I was just very glad to be done with my journey, you know, because it was a long day.
Right now, you get to that point, and then you make that right into the stadium, and you start walking and running on the oval, knowing that the finish line is just on the other side of the oval, and the only thing that really separates you and the finish line is about maybe 800 yards tops. How was that?
Last 800 meters, I was trying to run as fast as I possibly could, honestly. Even though my legs hurt pretty bad. It was quite emotional too, just everyone's screaming the energy of people, you know, or just, you know, you're finishing and you're just like, oh my gosh, everything you've worked so hard for in January is coming to an end.
Right. Now, emotionally, why was it so emotional for you?
Yeah, for me, I mean, just because it was just like, wow, I never anticipated doing this, you know. So, you know, here it is. I'm doing this, you know, and I'm almost done with this, you know. And it was honestly the greatest day of my life. I mean, all the highs and lows made up for it in that last 800 meters to the finish. My husband was apparently screaming my name. I don't know. I was just so focused on crossing the finish line. He like stuck out his hand to like, you know, tap my hand. But the lights are so bright when you come around there, you can't really like see anyone or see anything that's going on. So it was, I don't know. I just didn't really pay attention to anything other than me crossing the finish line, you know, and just soaking in every single moment that I could.
Okay, so after you crossed the finish line, what did you do next?
Well, I just wanted them to like release the tension in my shoes. Like I just wanted them to unlace my shoes, just so that, because I don't know, my feet get, you know, your feet get tired, and they're like, okay. I think they thought I was like, I needed medical attention, but I didn't. And then they take your picture. They put the medal over your neck. And then they take your picture, and then they want you to sit down and get you some food. But I didn't take any food, because if I ate anything or drank anything, I would just throw it right back up, because I was just so sick from everything that day, like, you know, internally just eating stuff. And then after that, I had a couple blisters on my toes that I needed fixed up. But other than that, I walked over to my husband and my sister, and we went back to the campsite. I showered, and I went to sleep. So...
Oh, wow.
It was pretty epic moment, though.
Okay, so looking back on it, how well prepared for this race do you think you were?
Oh, I was extremely prepared. Physically, mentally, I probably could have worked on that a little bit. I just, I really didn't think about I really thought about mentally, from the swim to the bike, but I never really thought about it from the bike to the run, so, I mean, when that time comes for me to do it again at some point in my life, I'll definitely spend a lot more time mentally preparing for that, run, bike to run, because I was coming off the bike and I'm like, oh my God, I got to run 26 miles. And I really didn't honestly think about it until that point. I'm like, oh my God, that's a really far way, holy, I have to run a marathon. And it took a little bit of time to get your mind wrapped around it. But I mean, it was there. It was just you got to do this, type of thing. So.
Okay. What's something that you learned from this race that you would like to pass on to someone who hasn't done this race before?
Honestly, do it. It's an amazing experience. If you are going to, though, I highly, highly recommend training hills for your bike. Just constantly training hills. That's all I did. I ate hills for breakfast, but it's an extremely hilly course. It's extremely, I don't really think it's that hilly of a run. It's got its share of ups and downs, but the bike is serious business. And you got to make sure you serious business trained wise on your bike before you even get to that start line, because if you haven't trained hills, it's going to be a long day. And if you're not prepared, it's going to be even harder. And I mean, you never know what the conditions are going to be. I thought it'd be hot and sunny, and here I am battling 50 mile per hour winds and, hail. So it was something I totally, didn't expect, but you got to, expect the unexpected.
Right. Now, how could Ironman have made your race experience better as an athlete?
Overall, nothing really, other than maybe, whenever I checked in, they noticed that I was a beginner. They could give me a little to-do list of hey, you're a beginner. Here's some of the you need to make sure you do. Other than that, I thought it was great.
Okay. So for first timers doing this race, what advice would you give them?
Just enjoy it. Honestly, you train so hard and you're training for such a long amount of time. Mentally prepare yourself, obviously physically prepare yourself, but truly just enjoy it. Don't get too anxious over things. You can't control the weather. You can't control the temperature of Mirror Lake. You can't really control those things. Just put your time into your training. Spend a whole lot of time, training, and it will pay off race day. And just truly enjoy the magic of Lake Placid and the spectators and your family, because it's an amazing thing. And, if you only do this once in your lifetime, you don't want to ever forget it. And you want it to be, honestly, one of the best days of your life. So just really, really, really enjoy it. And just, if you just choose your goals to just finish, things happen, my run didn't plan as well planned as what I wanted it to be. So I had to go to plan C, and, I made plan A, plan B, and plan C. And unfortunately I had to use plan C, but I didn't want to, but I had to. And honestly, it worked out for me in the end. And I really think, this race is going to be near and dear to my heart. I don't know if I'll ever be able to do another Ironman other than Lake Placid, just because of that vibe and the experience, just the Olympic vibe, and just the spectator volunteers were awesome. So, I highly, highly recommend it. And just trust in your training and do the work, put the work in, because if you don't put the work in, it's going to hurt you in the long run on this course.
Okay. Now we covered a lot. Do you have anything else you'd like to add about your race?
Not really. I did tell my husband when I crossed the finish line, I was like, remind me to never do this ever again. And then literally a day later, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do this again, and it wasn't that I didn't want to do it because I had such a horrible experience. It was just, that was such a long day and I'm extremely exhausted, type of a thing. But, I feel like you can do anything for a day, that's just what I told myself. I'm like, you're going to do this today. Tomorrow, you're not going to do this. So give it your all and do the best you can possibly do. And tomorrow you can sleep in and be sore and just enjoy the moment, So, but yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it. I really enjoyed it. Couldn't have asked for a better race. And honestly, I think the temperature, it rained and it was kind of yucky there in the first lap of the bike, but it was perfect for me. I don't run well. I don't do well in the heat and humidity. So like the weather was actually perfect for me. Other than that, it was awesome, and I will definitely be back again. So
Nice. So I only have a few more questions for you, and that's what's next for you?
honestly, I'm not sure yet. I'm not really, I really want to sign up for 2019, but I don't know. I'm kind of on the edge. I basically, I'm just going to keep up my training. I'm going to take like a month to just kind of like relax and recover. I have been doing, some recovery, bikes and swims, and, I'm trying to get back into my fitness classes and stuff. And I can tell my body is like really sore and tired still. So I'm not really going to be doing too much too soon. I'm just going to be kind of feeling it out, going with how my body feels. But the next thing I am doing is a half marathon in Las Vegas. My husband and I were doing the rock and roll half marathon in November. And that's really pretty much it on my list of things to do right now. We are going to Africa in September, so I'm kind of preparing for that, which is taking a lot of time. But other than that, I'm kind of cruising it out for the rest of 2018 and trying to plan on what I want to do, what big races I want to do for 2019. So
Nice. Well, I only really have one more question for you, and that's, what's your definition of a perfect race?
definition of a perfect race. Definition of a perfect race for me would be everything ideal for my body to be 100% perfect. My temperature, my muscles aren't sore. I don't have any problems. My fueling goes as well. The weather's perfect. Pretty much all the things that I enjoy in training play out on that race day.
Wow, that's great. So how can athletes follow you?
They can follow me on Instagram or Facebook. Vanessa Snyder on Facebook, and Instagram is TRINN_VJS182006.
Awesome. Well, Vanessa, I just want to thank you so much for your time today and sharing your experience. I've enjoyed it, and I look forward to following you in the future.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
You're welcome. Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you were able to learn something from today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to leave a review on iTunes or share it with a friend. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to see pictures from this athlete's race, learn more about who I am, what I'm doing, or be on the show yourself to share your story, check out my website at CoachTerryWilson.com. Until next time, continue the pursuit.